Okay, let's get into this shit. Style has been a staple of art from the beginning of time, favoring appeal over realism or accuracy to get us baby brains interested. Style has also shown to be probably the biggest differentiator on whether people will like the content you make and give your page a follow, or just click away onto other content their sinning eyeballs will, to put it bluntly, actually enjoy. So, how does one go from being the Instagram equivalent of an untouchable to a recognized and loved artist with thousands of likes per post? Well, of course, with great patience, wisdom, and a good outlook with ass. It's with a whole lot of ass. Meet Myinputwo, or Myinputwo, or as I will call him from here on after, Input, since I don't actually know if I'm saying the name right. Input is an NSFW artist boasting over 134,000 followers on Instagram. And as shown by his feed, is also an artist that doesn't give a shit about posting nudity. How the fuck does he get away with that? But all jokes aside, he's a very technically skilled artist with a knack for making quite visually pleasing figures with amazing rendering and complex yet simple shape language. Which brings me to the reason for this video. Well, I can't show you exactly how he works, as not only is my skill far fucking inferior to his, like this man's fucking insane, I'm also just not him. I can show you how I go about studying an artist though, and what I've personally learned about Input's art using the methods I will describe here. Pretty much giving you a sort of template to follow, using Input as a guinea pig / example. Just a little side note, if you would actually like to learn all this shit from Myinput himself, I would actually highly recommend going over to his Patreon, which I will leave right down there in the description, so you can go over, support the fucking man that inspired this whole video, and, you know, get some process videos and all that shit in return. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we?
Hola, soy Diego!
And welcome to learning to draw things that, weirdly enough, make people horny. Before we begin with the whole tutorial, I want to actually remind you that I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Twitch. So if you want to ask some questions or just hang out, you know, I'm a pretty cool guy. The link to my channel, along with my socials and all that shit, like my Instagram, my Twitter, everything you need to stalk me, will be actually down in the description. And if you feel like this video helped you, or you enjoy being called a baby genius, make sure to leave a like and comment down below, as not only does it help the channel, but it also kind of gives me a slight dopamine boost to see it. So, you know, please feed my brain. Hey guys, so this is Diego from the future. I was editing this video and halfway through I noticed that when recording, I got lost in explaining shape appeal for a really long time, instead of getting into some more specific things that you actually need to take into account when looking at Input's art. I also noticed that I was taking a real slow ass approach, so for your enjoyment, I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. We're actually just gonna do a fun little lightning round so I can inform you of things to look out for and cut the filler exponentially. First things first, yes, shape appeal is very important, but all you really want to do is to go into his art and trace some of the shapes he makes and kind of notice how they're pushed and pulled from their realistic counterparts. So say a realistic leg and a stylized leg. Take note of that and just move on. If you want to know more about this, I'm actually going to be linking a great Sinix video down below that will explain in about 11 minutes what I couldn't in an hour. So yeah, check that out. You'll probably learn a lot about shapes and triangles. Moving on, line quality is a great thing to implement into your art, and specifically this style benefits a lot from it, since Input likes his lines very clean and you should too. This is a great thing to pick up unless you're threading the needle to get your lines done. Yeah, don't do that. Instead, try to make shapes in one single gestural swoop rather than conjunction of several lines. Another thing, look for where his lines thicken and where they get thin. This adds a lot to what at times may seem like a flat ass fucking sketch. So if you are new to the concept, I'll link to an Ganev video where he covers the topic a bit more in depth so you can begin understanding line weight and where to use it. Input style relies heavily on showing big volumes in a very smooth and gestural way, aka if your shapes look really pretty but their flow is stiff, you'll end up with an off-putting bad copy of a good artist, aka the studies that I've made of them. So practice gesture, don't be me.
Holy fuck!
Next, let's look at the proportions that he uses. Big hips, little rib cages. This is a heavy generalization, but if you're looking to draw a generic input styled character, this should always be in your mind. Speaking of minds, let's hop onto the head. Head sizes vary, but something I've noticed recently that I've heard in one of Ahmed Outdoors' videos, that a neat trick to figure out a rough proportion to the head is to make the head roughly the same size of the ribcage. And this is actually very true for a lot of stylized characters drawn in the industry, but I want you to take that shit outside, because in this style, we only deal with little heads. One of the things that I've noticed a lot in his more exaggerated art is that he tends to give his characters very tiny heads, sort of like taking one of those really adorable anime girls and giving her porn star proportions. So give your characters a tiny head if you're really going for it. Okay, so lightning round for facial features and how to draw faces like he does. Okay, so tiny nose, tiny mouth, big eyes, a Nike swoosh for an eyelash to highlight how feminine the character is. Now, for the things you don't want to hear, for this style, you'll need one of the two things to pull it off. One, you have learned sufficient anatomy to know when you've pulled a little too much and destroyed that little gap between realism and just cartoons, or you could do what most other artists do with a short attention span like me. Find a shit ton of reference and draw from it. Learn roughly how things are shaped and start getting that little rough idea of anatomy. And I also recommend supplementing that with actual anatomy knowledge, like Sycra's videos. Those are really helpful. So I'll link some of those below and check those out so you can get a bit of a better understanding of how to stylize your characters in a more realistic manner. And the next tip, use contour lines to your advantage. A little sneaky trick that Input slides below the radar when drawing his shapes is that he typically draws either a bracelet on his characters or draws them with pretty much what can only be described as a chunk missing. This is to hint viewers into the perspective and form of the character. And you should look into adding this stinky trick into your arsenal too, since it helps things look 3D, Okay, that was a lot to get through. To make sure that you get the most out of this info though, make sure that you are tracing into the pieces you like and pretty much just noting everything that you think is important to emulate this style. So yeah, don't just look at it for a while. That's not gonna do much for you. Just get hands-on with it and you'll start learning as you go. Also, while I felt this came without saying, I'm still gonna say it. It isn't cool to just steal someone's style and claim it as your own. Sure, making a couple pieces while crediting your inspiration is cool, but when you're stuck in a mode of copying and repeating, I recommend you start looking for other inspirations to remix your interests with. Since these people have worked pretty hard on building up their craft and their style, so it's kind of fucked up for someone to just walk in and steal it out of nowhere. And to clarify, while yes, I'm teaching you everything I've learned and interpreted from my own studies of Myinputwo, the main objectives of this video are both to set an example for beginners and intermediates alike to get out of that mentality of copying being an awful thing and that getting your style from other artists is just punishable by death. That's just simply not true, and it's actually just a good thing to go ahead and study artists that you enjoy to build your style and make it something that is sort of a remix of your own personal views and likes. I'm also trying to put forth a very basic template of study for you to follow with the artist of your choice. So, use this information to actually get out there and study other artists, not just Input, since this will, in the long run, make you a better artist. I'd let past me get into this topic, but due to how much shit I actually just changed, I'm just going to shorten it for you. So, make things a bit easy and less awkward. So here you'll see me starting the second phase of a set of studies I did of Input. If you haven't guessed it yet, the last stage of study is to take what you learned and make a piece emulating that style you studied, okay? At this point, I wouldn't be too careful with getting the style perfectly right. But instead, I typically use this stage to figure out the nuances that I would like to take with me and toss them into my easy bake oven of style. So while this piece is clearly in his style, I'm actually mostly using this as a piece to puke up all the concepts I learned and being mindful of what things I think I could use for my personal pieces. Also, if you're having issues with finding reference, I'd recommend you look through Instagram. I actually took the bullet being not being able to open Instagram in public, and followed quite a couple of Instagram accounts like this one for you to rummage through and pick up references like the one I'm using in this piece. Notice that I actually make a pretty big mistake at the beginning of this piece. That being that I made my figure really stiff since I got sort of cocky and tried to skip that portion for the most part where I was able to set up my line of action like I did with my last one. So if Anything is a testament to practicing good gesture and just, you know, having good habits is my stiff ass drawings. So, you know, I actually go in later on and fix this piece with Liquify and try my best to get the shapes to a chunky enough place where I'm satisfied. And I feel like this part doesn't need that much commentary since you've probably already gotten the gist of it. While the sketch isn't as clean as I could have made it, I still think it turned out decent, and I'm actually pretty excited to try to paint it next time I pick it up. Anyways, since I don't want to waste any more time of yours with a weird speech about appreciating art and, you know, all that sappy shit that I originally had as an outro, I'll just end it by saying, be cool, study and don't copy, drive safe, and good luck, because you're gonna need it.